You on. Our next guest actually is going to speak to us about this exact issue, Kurdish affairs. Joining us now is Cihan Özkan, fellow for Kurdish affairs at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America. So you probably just heard the guest right before us who essentially said that he thinks it is a dangerous idea for the United States to help fund and arm Kurdish militias, Iranian Kurdish militias, in the fight against the IRGC. What is your response to that, especially amidst the drone strikes that we've been seeing right now from the Islamic Republic on Kurdish militia sites in the west of the country?
Well, firstly, I think we need to clarify that this is nothing new. The Kurds have been fighting this regime for decades, and they've been able to push back against both IRGC and Iranian security structures in the Kurdish regions, and have been engaging them for a very long time. So this is nothing new. But I think you actually asked the brilliant question to your previous guest about, if it's not going to be the Kurds, then who is it going to be? If it's not going to be the few thousand Kurds, he wanted to belittle the number, but even if it's 1,000 Kurdish fighters, that is 1,000 more than any other part of Iran right now. So at some point, there's going to be communities in Iran that are going to have to take this fight and defend their country from the current regime. So we have several Kurdish organizations that are willing to do this, that are willing to fight for their country, willing to fight for their lands, willing to fight for their very existence, which they have been doing for a long time, and want to continue to do so. Now, your previous guest, kept on talking about this poll or that poll, or the Kurds don't have support in the country or even in the Kurdish regions. But do you not recognize that that's so similar to what the current regime says about Pahlavi or the whole opposition in general? If you look at the regime, they say that Pahlavi doesn't have support, any kind of opposition does not have support, and that the current Islamist regime represents the whole of Iran. So it's actually quite concerning that their language and their minimizing of anyone that doesn't agree with them is very similar to the way the current regime handles its affairs as well. So it's concerning to see the similarity in that language there. And as I said, you asked a brilliant question, and unfortunately, other than disparaging the Kurdish fighters that are willing to take this fight to the regime, he was unable to respond as to what other part of Iran is going to take this fight against this regime.
Obviously, I was going to ask you about the manpower of Kurdish militias, but I think that at this point, that's pretty irrelevant based on what you just broke down. I think one of the other issues that we're looking here, of course, is, given what happened in Syria, where the U.S. has effectively abandoned the Kurds after the SDF essentially fighting ISIS for over a decade on behalf of the West, I'm assuming that Kurdish militias are probably looking for some sort of guarantees from the United States, and that would have to do with Kurdish autonomy. And the question is, in the aftermath of the Islamic Republic falling, what would that impact have on the rest of the country and the unity of Iran as a whole?
So firstly, the Kurds, as I said, have been resisting and fighting for their very existence and for their rights for decades, not just in Iran, not just in Iraq, but in Syria and in Turkey too. So they have never sought guarantees to show their willingness to fight for their rights. They've been doing this with or without guarantees, and not just without guarantees, but largely against a whole coalition of forces that have pushed back against Kurdish rights, both regionally and globally. So the introduction of guarantee giving by certain states is a very new phenomenon in the Kurdish struggle. So the Kurds are motivated by their own demand for rights, by their own willingness to fight for their rights and fight for their very existence. That said, the onus is on other countries to show that they are ethical powers, that they are sensitive to the rightful demands of minorities throughout the region. Now, I'm pretty sure that in the engagements between the Kurdish groups and the Kurdish organizations on the ground in Iran and both Israel and the US, who have for the last 7 days, intervened significantly in Iran. There are ongoing discussions as to what the next phase of the operation will look like. The president of the US has said that he will accept nothing but total capitulation, that he will accept nothing but a change in the government and the format of the government in Tehran. Then he is going to listen to the very organizations and the communities of this country as to what they want for the future. Some other
unfortunately, I have to cut you off because we're going out for a quick commercial break right now. Trust me, I want to continue this conversation. It's absolutely fascinating. But stick with us on I-24 News. We're going to be right back.